It was in many ways that R.J. Mitchell, the innovative designer, and his team behind this were unable to see the outrageous success. Prototype first flew in March 1936, of course, following the equally outrageous success of the Schneider Trophy and the early designs which led to this remarkable elliptical feature and a very thin wing, enabling it to get high speeds, but of course just keeping enough good Captain Matt Peterson. And all these aircraft, bar two, the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight only has two routine serving officers, the rest all volunteers, again like many of us, giving up their weekends to display and commemorate the past that these aircraft were so closely involved in. Dependable Hurricanes scored more German kills and had a turnaround time of only 9 minutes compared to the 26 minutes required to rearm a Spitfire. The progress any of you can make, you youngsters out there, even if you don't get to pilot first time. There are plenty of opportunities to pick that up later on, and only went on to get trained, streamed, and went through officer training as well, and ended up by the Hercules Tactical Air Transport role, and then as a QFI on elementary flying training before being reacquainted with the Hercules C-130J at Rise Norton. Alongside him today is Flight Lieutenant Neil Farrell. As well as those who flew the aircraft and the marvellous Rolls-Royce engines that were developed to power them all. Of course, there were outstanding designers as well. We mentioned R.J. Mitchell and his work with the Spitfire, but Sidney Camp's incredible achievements went on for so many years, from the Hurricane all the way through to the Harrier. And Roy Chadwick, his development work on the Lancaster led through eventually to the massive achievement of the Vulcan, which sadly now based back at Finningley in Yorkshire, but we all had the pleasure of seeing for so many years during that outstanding restoration work. Way back on speed, the Spitfire keeping up to the upper end of his speed range, but a magnificent opportunity. Yesterday's and today's fighter boys. Coming back now for over 1200 degrees of roll. And here it starts. Yes, look how carefree that is. Now, of course, whilst you can train for much of this, and the aircraft does help you out enormously with information, there's a lot of data being fed back to you as you're flying this aircraft. You can train also for the G, but you have got a lot of additional fitting aircraft and aircrew fittings that help you withstand those extremes of +9 to -3. Running up now into a high-speed barrel roll. Just dipping in and out of the... completing a neat barrel roll, and you've heard me mention this before, and it's just like flying around the outside of a barrel. But again, you know, to fly accurately, you've really got to practice these to get the speeds and heights absolutely spot on. And that's what makes a difference between just a part-time aviator having a bit of fun in the aircraft and the accuracy required to be a modern air display pilot. Coming in the 45 now for another barrel roll. I thought he might have looped it this way. And you mentioned that the reference to things like 45s, the display area, you can see all the red markings on the beach going from left to right. That's what we... That interesting jet sound sounds better than it is. Actually, just a little under 6,000 pound of thrust. Compared that to what the Typhoon was punching out a little earlier, 4 times that amount. An engine that was very much developed from the old Neen and Derwent engines from Rolls-Royce in the UK, because the Soviets bought a good number of those engines. Here today, the Klimov BK1, but essentially a close derivative of those Rolls-Royce engines. Developing a max speed of around 500 kilometers an hour, or Mach 0.92, range of just in excess of 1,100 miles at a surface ceiling around 50,000 feet. Able to pull 8G, but of course the G protection and measures and physiology all still in its infancy in those early days of jet fighters. Now, those of you who've seen this environmentally efficient smoke that is used by most teams now. It's a form of Ondina, and of course you know all about negative G now. That's when the blood rushes your head. But this guy doesn't like to fly anywhere in a straight line. Even that was a curve, so he always throws in where he can an additional couple of rolls and spins. You're going to see hammerhead maneuvers. You're going to see gyroscopic maneuvers. I'm just keeping an eye out, stretching my head out of the window here to catch this one as well, rolling all the way down there. And again, although energy management is essential in this, he actually has a huge amount of power in a massive engine he's got on the front end, a 6-cylinder 8.5 litre Lycoming engine, giving him enormous power. You'll see him during the course of this display hover in the air, something quite extraordinary. Now this aircraft goes back to its design in the mid-1940s, where it dominated. Imagine really on the ground here just how physical the activity is for him in the cockpit, both with the use of controls and also stressing and straining his own body at the same time. Attack sweeps over the German, Austrian and Czechoslovakian borders and still carries the battle scars to this day, with bullet repairs in several places along the fuselage. Like so many vintage aircraft, went through so many owners, was coincidentally with our friends here this year. It was served with a number of squadrons and was prepared for a shipment to Korea, but didn't quite make it and went off. And years in South America, it was eventually bought by Jacques Bourret in France, and you may well have seen this aircraft wearing the colour scheme of Jumping Jack. That was commemorating another pilot, Jacques Young, of the 3rd Air Commando Group, but redesigned now to reflect the Tuskegee Airmen of the 332nd Group. And Peter Typhoon, a really delightful individual and veteran of the air display sector.
To Diamond Formation, please welcome them with a huge round of applause.
On the Mark IV with 848 and 846 Naval Air Station. And while this is going on, I mentioned the Air Force will be back later. Don't forget, we've got the red arrows at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I suggest you stick around for them as well. But meanwhile, back to what's going on in the air. Jim here also deployed on Optelic in support of operations in Iraq, and of course Herrick in Afghanistan as well, but was eventually selected for officer training and passed out of Naval College in 2009.
Races powerboats and drives classic cars.
He also has a penchant for Michelin-starred restaurants. During his varied career, DJ has amassed over 6,000 hours flying 50 different aircraft types. Today, the Tutor is flown by the Royal Air Force's largest flying school, No. 6 Flying Training School. The Tutor is used to train junior RAF pilots, university air squadron students and air cadets all around the UK. Displaying the Tutor requires the pilot to be meticulous with his or her energy management. DJ now uses a wing over to regain as much energy as possible before he sets up to perform his next manoeuvre. The Grob 115 Tutor, as it's officially known, is operated in partnership with Babcock International Group. It is constructed of a carbon composite material and has a 180...
Our comments earlier on. This day, of course, 82 years ago was recognised as the formal start of the Battle of Britain. We've learnt already so much about the amazing design and success of the Spitfire itself as a class of aircraft and the remarkable development. Here, to a certain extent, you see quite a lot of that development between the 5B leading with at the hands of Dave Harvey and the remarkable Mark 19, the photo reconnaissance aircraft. As they break apart, the Mark 19 will just hold off. Aircraft went through a bit of a tricky time, having been damaged in 1943 on and off and passed through various hands before ending up at St. Tyhpoon in engine development right up until joining the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight in the mid-1950s. The mission here is slightly different, of course, from that of the memorial flight. Rolls-Royce wanting to inspire, educate and promote aviation heritage through the operation of such rare and historically accurate aircraft, engines and other artefacts. Their aim particularly to entice the younger generation to get involved in the pathway to modern technology and sustainability through science, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics, but also to tell the story of and commemorate those who fought for their country. Chris's operational career was actually very much flying the Jaguar, particularly on option-I flights over the former Yugoslavia, but was also an instructor on both the Hawk and the Alpha Jet as well. Do similar back with him, give him a nod of approval. Got a fairly varied background, having first flown AutoGyros in 1991. And although he flies a lot of other aircraft, this is very much his specialism. One of the many unique displays that we see around the UK. But he's also displayed at major air shows in Paris, Biggin Hill, Farnborough, Manchester, and of course just up the road here in Blackpool as well. AutoGyro flying instructor of instructors, such as his achievement. He was awarded a gold in the World Microlight Championships, and also set a...
Into the vertical, the speed getting down to around about 50 miles an hour as they each apply full rudder to go left and right respectively. Now in joins Blade 4 behind Blade 1. The smoke is coming on. Get ready for the crossfire break. Pulling around 9 times the force of gravity as they execute the crossfire break. We're now getting ready to see Blade 1 come in from our right hand side and Blade 4 come in from our left hand side. To your right is Blade 1, he's Andy Evans. He's the longest serving member of the Blades aerobatic team. In fact, he was a founding member of the team back in 2006. So Blade 1 on your right, Blade 4 on your left. They're coming down to 100 feet now. They're going to roll before they cross for the next manoeuvre. Again, putting up at around 6 times the force of gravity into the vertical. Chopping the throttles for silence as they head back towards the beach. Now keep your eyes on the aircraft to the right hand side. This is Blade 4, James McMillan. He is our solo display pilot in our 4-ship display. He's going to perform what we call a tumble now, so pushing the aircraft over end, using lots of rudder to control the yaw of the aircraft into a little spin, and then pulling around 6G back to 100 feet. Get ready for a bit of sideways flying. This is the Blade slide. Climbing up to...
But the aircraft achieved even more success and development in a pressurized Mark V version, which then led to the armed version, a Mark of the Mark V, becoming the Strikemaster. Mark owns a couple of these, both with Middle Eastern roots, interestingly enough. Mark 82, one from the Sultan of Oman, and the Mark 80A version with roots in the Royal Saudi Air Force. Brett's flying it today, got his roots in the Royal Air Force, like so many other display pilots. Some of you may remember, he was the team manager.
Make their way back to the rear of the formation, formating our first shape, space-themed shape. Once again, get your cameras ready for the shuttle roll. As the formation rolls to the left, to the right hand side, you will see closest in is Red 2 Flight Lieutenant Stu Roberts. He's in his first year on the team, having previously flown Typhoon on 11 and 12 squadrons at RAF Coningsby. And his opposite number on the left-hand side is Red 3, Flight Lieutenant Patrick Kershaw, known as Paddy. He is a former Tornado GR4 pilot, as well as flying rear of the formation. The Royal Air Force is aware that it needs to adapt and develop its capabilities. And on the 1st of April 2021, UK Space Command was formed, as the Royal Air Force acknowledges that space plays an important part in all military operations of air, land, sea and the cyber domains. It attributes an acknowledgement to the importance of space with a shape that represents the lunar landing craft of the early 1960s space missions. This is Apollo. The motto of the Red Arrows is Eclat, which means excellence. This means that every personnel member of the squadron, from the officer commanding all the way down to the most junior, is trying to strive for excellence in every cross in the boomerang.